Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Today we have two very special guests in duplex from Washington. First of all, John Prendergast, who's the co-founder of the Enough Project, an anti-genocide advocacy group. And then someone I don't need to introduce, George Clooney. Thank you very much for being on France 24 today.
Thank you.
John and George, you just came back from Sudan, where tensions are escalating between the North and the South, ahead of a referendum on self-determination to be held in southern Sudan on January 9th. It will decide whether the south of the country decides to secede from the north. Many observers feel this could reignite the civil war that tore Africa's largest country apart for decades and caused some 2 million deaths. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton recently described the situation as a ticking time bomb of enormous consequence. You met on Monday President Obama at the White House to update him on the situation. George Clooney, what did you tell the President of the United States?
Well, first we asked the President of the United States what we could do to help in any way support his diplomatic actions, because what this is going to require is robust diplomacy, real robust diplomacy, like the success that we found in 2005 in bringing an end to the war that killed 2.5 million people in the North-South. We were heartened by how involved the President is now, how important it is, and how well informed on the issue he is, and how personally invested he is in it. And our job now is to try and help get him as much political will in the country and across the world.
John, let me ask you, when I said a ticking bomb is about to explode, I mean, is this true? Are we on the verge of a potential civil war yet again in Sudan?
Yeah, it's not an exaggeration. You know, in the war between 1983 and 2005, almost 2.5 million people died. And of course, as everyone knows, during the period between 2003 and the present, 300,000 or 400,000 people have perished in Darfur in the genocide there. So the track record exists. This government in Khartoum is willing to kill and undertake very, very serious policies that do terrible harm to human populations in order to stay in power. So we're not taking the threat lightly that the North-South war could explode again, and we're appealing to governments in Europe and the United States to do all they can diplomatically to prevent it.
George, let me ask you, I mean, is the danger the fact that there's a referendum where it's likely that the South will decide to secede from the North, or the fact that the North, the central government in Khartoum, which is headed by Omar al-Bashir, does not want a secession? What's the biggest danger?
Well, they're both the danger. The danger is that they are going to vote to secede. They've been enslaved, and they've been sold, and they have been tortured and raped and murdered. And in 2005, they were given the right to vote for their own independence. And January 9th, they're going to vote for it. When they do, the government of Khartoum, who has had two opportunities before in the North-South and in Darfur to act, militarily, will more than likely act. This is a point because there's a tremendous amount of oil involved. And, Omar al-Bashir doesn't want to come away losing the South, losing the oil revenue. So this is a tinderbox, and there's a lot of matches being lit, and it's a very, very dangerous time.
So what would you like President Obama to do? I mean, he can take some retaliatory measures like freezing the accounts. There could be even maybe military intervention. What is your expectation? What did he tell you he would do?
Well, he's definitely investing the United States government in a diplomatic solution. And our message to him and our message to governments in France and throughout Europe is that the Americans and Europeans have to work together with the African Union to create a path, one path for the Sudanese parties to travel down right now to peace.
George Clooney, how do you ask Omar al-Bashir, someone who has an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court on charges of genocide and war crimes to negotiate, or because he has to be part of that solution. How do you do this with this threat hanging over his head?
Well, it's difficult, but the truth of the matter is every negotiation, in particularly peace negotiations, are going to be dealing with and negotiating with people that we don't necessarily like. How you negotiate is you sit down at a table and you offer options that if you choose peace all the way through, not just North-South, Darfur, there are methods, there are ways that can normalize relations with the United States and the governor of Khartoum that can get them back sort of in the middle of economic freedoms with the United States.
But John, if there is an arrest warrant, it is not going away. The African Union has called for a suspension of the charges against Omar al-Bashir. Is this the solution to get him to the table and find a diplomatic solution that you're calling for?
Well, it's back to this point about benefits and consequences. Basically, if President Bashir's government does the right things, if it undertakes a peace process between the North, with the South, that leads to a peaceful referendum and independence of the South, and if he invests in a solution in Darfur, then there will be a significant effort to try to suspend the International Criminal Court charges. If he takes the country back to war between the North and the South and escalates in Darfur, then governments around the world will work and should work very, very heartily to try to ensure that the international indictments, the International Criminal Court indictments, are executed. So in other words, the sword of Damocles of justice is hanging over President Bashir's head. It's in his hands whether he will end up in The Hague or not, because if he does the right thing and supports peace in the South and in Darfur, there's a chance that he can escape the sword. But if he doesn't, then we need to redouble our efforts to try to apprehend him and make sure that he spends the rest of his life in prison.
John, what would be a solution? I mean, postponing the referendum, holding it despite the fact that the preparations are way behind. What's the solution immediately? 88 days, as you said.
Yeah, I think that right now, technically, it is possible to hold the referendums both in Abyei and in the south of the country. And this is the chance for France and Britain and the United States to work together to press for the diplomatic solution that George is talking about that will enable the interests of the parties to be addressed sufficiently that they allow the referenda to be held. And that's the key. I mean, I don't even want to talk about after January 9 because these 88 days between now and January 9th, we have so much work to do, and we have the chance for success. So if diplomacy can succeed in preventing a war, if diplomacy can succeed in ensuring that these referenda are held and these people who have been long denied their rights finally get to exercise them, we've got to do everything we can. We've got to see France step up its diplomatic game. We've got to see Britain become much more invested in a solution, and we've got to see the United States working together with its Security Council partners and China and Russia to ensure that the parties in Sudan know there is no alternative. Peace is what the international community is demanding, and if they don't lead it in that direction, there are going to be significant consequences.
I think also it's important to tell you that when we met with the president yesterday, one of the things he talked about was, you know, in order for diplomacy, in some ways we've come a long way. The United States, we don't do business with the government of Sudan, and that has effect on them. But yes, the Chinese do. A lot of countries do. We need all the countries to, listen. Omar al-Bashir is not buying things with Sudanese pounds. He's buying them with euros and dollars and English pounds. We need to find those assets and freeze them, and we need the help of the international community to do that.
So are you optimistic, or do you really fear that there will eventually be a civil war, whatever happens to the referendum, if it's held, if it's not allowed?
Well, you got to be optimistic. You got to hope. We're in this because because we see a fire being started where we might be able to, where we, not us, but you, all of us, the world, might be able to put it out before it starts. So you got to be optimistic. You got to hope. I am very fearful of what's going to happen, and what we didn't want it to do was to happen in a vacuum, because we know how this government of Khartoum has performed in a vacuum. So we're here because we want to turn some lights on and make it very public and make it very difficult to have atrocities happen and say we didn't know. We got 88 days to try and carve something out before, not after. You know, we talk about this. We were late. Again, we were late to the Congo. We were late to Rwanda. We were late to the North-South. We were late to Darfur. We've been late often, and we come in and we mop up a mess, and we spend billions of dollars doing it. Your country as well, and this is an opportunity to stop it before it happens, without spending any money, without risking any lives. This is a chance to do it, and it requires robust, hardcore diplomacy.
Okay, let me just ask John. So do you think that the West can really sway Omar al-Bashir, that he is listening to you guys and to other people?
Yeah, this isn't Iran. This isn't North Korea. Sudan, the government in Sudan actually cares about how it's perceived in the international community. It wants legitimacy, and it seeks that legitimacy in Paris and in London and in Washington. It wants to see in the future the nation of Sudan taken out of the international penalty box, which it's in now because of all of the terrible atrocities that this government has committed in Darfur and previously in the South. The only way they can get there is if the international community stays united, particularly the French, the British, and the Americans, and pulling the Chinese and Russians along with them in the Security Council, and ensuring that the Sudanese government understands that the only way they're going to get the legitimacy that they crave and talk about all the time privately in diplomatic meetings is if they pursue a path of peace, if they allow the referenda to occur, and if they allow the South to secede peacefully.
Just very quickly, George, are you planning to go back to Sudan to continue pushing the issue before the referendum?
If not before, during the referendum, yes. I've been there several times, and we'll continue to go there. This is the time to be there, and the time to. John's going back tomorrow. We're going to continue keeping the pressure on, because the other part of this, and I've been involved in fundraisers for Haiti, for instance, or bringing attention to Darfur, and the truth is, you do a telethon or you do a rally, and everybody goes home and goes, okay, that's solved. And the truth is, Haiti's still a mess, and Darfur is still a mess, and it requires sustained attention, or a tragedy will occur on the 10th instead of the 9th. So we have to keep the pressure up, and I'll keep going back.
Okay, John Prendergast, George Clooney, thank you very much for being with us in Duplex from Washington. And thank you for watching this very special interview on France 24.